When you need mealtime inspiration, it's worth shopping Kroger, where you'll find over 30,000 mouth-watering choices that excite your inner foodie. And no matter what tasty choice you make, you'll enjoy our everyday low prices, plus extra ways to save, like digital coupons worth over $600 each week. You can also save up to $1 off per gallon at the pump with fuel points. More savings and more inspiring flavors make shopping Kroger worth it every time. Kroger, fresh for everyone. Fuel restrictions apply.
Hello and welcome to AI Scouted on Anfield Index Pro. I'm Dave Hendrick, joined as always by our man on the ground in Germany, Mr. Karl Matchett. How are you, sir?
I am much more than a 7 out of 10 today, thankfully.
You attended a football match yesterday that had quite the wild atmosphere, and we'll come to that. But let's start with yet another disappointing performance from England. But thanks to a lot of luck and the genius of Jude Bellingham, ended in a 2-1 England win over Slovakia. They go 1-0 down on 25 minutes to a goal by Ivan Schranz. And Karl, it looked for all intents and purposes like it was going to end that way. England looked completely lost, utterly hopeless. But with mere seconds remaining in stoppage time, was a throw it into the box, a weak defensive header, and a moment of genius from Jude Bellingham draws England level, sends the game to extra time. And then with the Slovakians clearly still reeling from the fact that they conceded so late, clearly not ready for the extra time, Harry Kane scores within 60 seconds of the restart. And that was it. England 2, Slovakia 1. Your thoughts?
First of all, hard not to feel some measure of feeling sorry for the Slovak players, because that quick of a turnaround, having been that close, was obviously very, very destabilising and demoralising for them. And like you could see at the end, they were just out, not just on their feet, but like their heads were completely gone. And it's, obviously a shame, but that's what makes sport so very, very incredible. It also underlines the importance of being able to mentally reset as quickly as possible, to be perfectly honest. If you want to look at it as a elite sports thing, then after a setback, no matter how big it is, you have to be ready to go again. Otherwise, it's going to punish you even more. And that's pretty much precisely what happens. England were absolutely diabolical for 94 minutes and produced about 2 moves worthy of the name. One resulted in an offside goal. One resulted in just a sheer moment from Jude Bellingham, who I have to say again was pretty poor throughout, other than that individual act, which was beyond special. And sometimes it used to be the case that a centre forward could get away with that kind of game. We'd refer to them as being on the fringes of the game or on the periphery or whatever, but they would have that moment or two in the penalty box, they'd score a goal, they'd win the game, and that was exactly what you wanted from them. It didn't matter if the rest of the game was bad. That's kind of extended now to a lot of other positions, and Bellingham definitely came up with one of those games yesterday.
Yeah, I thought Jude was very poor throughout the game. And then he pulls off an absolute worldie. It's an outrageous goal, but I don't think England deserved it at all. I think Slovakia can feel very, very hard done by. But as you said, that is sport. You have to play to the final whistle. And it is one lax defensive header. No, it's unfortunate as well, but you have to give credit to Bellingham because it's outrageous. And then into the extra time, Harry Kane, who had yet another stinker, doing exactly what you said, just, turning up with the goal. It's really clever thinking from Ivan Toney to put it on a plate for him. And, England go through. And they go through to face Switzerland, Karl. And that's going to be probably... it's going to be the toughest game they've had in this tournament. The Danes would be the next best opponent they'd have played. I think that's a really tough game for England, based on what we've seen, based on what Switzerland did against Italy, how they played in their group. I feel like the Swiss, on form, should be seen as favourites, but obviously England will be seen as favourites because they do have the more talented team. But it's a tough one for England.
Yeah, I mean, beyond's tough, to be honest. I think Slovakia have been a bit underdone in terms of what they've done at the tournament and their performances. I think they've been pretty good. Yesterday, I think you're completely right. They deserved the win. I think by 60, 70 minutes, they were probably worthy of a 2-goal lead over England, no question. But Switzerland have been not just good on the ball, but great off it. Really, really cohesive, really good unit. Excellent moving the ball through the thirds. They know what they're doing in terms of build-up play, whether it's counter-attacking or sustained pressure. England haven't played a team like this yet. They haven't played a team who are comfortable dominating long, long stretches and being technically proficient in the final third. Denmark would be the closest to that, but I don't think that they have been or were great in the final third all tournament. Switzerland have been, and their movement is off the charts, and the speed of play that they have, England haven't actually achieved once yet, I would say, during the tournament. Like, it's been so ponderous from England. I haven't read Southgate's post-match stuff yet. I will do a little bit later on today, and I will be quite keen to see what he said. But he was incredibly unreactive for that match yesterday. Like, I don't really understand. I know they scored with 5 seconds left or whatever, and I know then Ivan Toney's got the extra time assist, but I don't understand what that sub was about, or why it waited so long, or why any of the subs waited so long, or why there weren't more substitutions made. England were crap. Like, they were getting nowhere. And if it hadn't been for just a moment of incredible athleticism as much as technical ability at that stage in the game, they would be out. Like, he was, 20 seconds from being given the boot from the job, basically.
Yeah.
And made no alterations to the style of play, made no alterations to the build-up. England play anything approaching that again, they're out. Switzerland will not just knock them out, they will comprehensively beat England.
Yeah, I mean, it was the 84th minute before he made a change by choice, because Trippier had to come off. He made that Trippier change on 66 minutes and then waited another 18 minutes before bringing off Kobbie Mainoo and replacing him with Eberechi Eze. Then he waits another 10 minutes into the 94th minute before bringing on Ivan Toney for Phil Foden. And when I see moves like that, the only thought that comes into my mind is, you have no idea what you're doing here. You're just in desperation mode now, and you're hoping to pump a long ball or two into the box.
Even if the Toney thing was like, this is our new plan, we're going to go more direct now and everything, why not make the double change then to bring on literally the best crosser in the squad?
Yeah.
Like, why was there no their approach, let's say, to what you're doing? There was 0 decent crosses from England in the 90 minutes that I saw. Now, I didn't get to see like extra time properly because obviously I was, we're going to talk about the next game. So I was in the media centre for the 90 minutes. And then as soon as that finished and extra time was about to start, I headed over to the stadium. So I didn't miss, but I couldn't like properly watch, obviously, extra time. So maybe the crossing got considerably better in that period, but I would suspect it would be more likely England sat off again.
Yeah, it didn't get better.
Yeah,
so better.
There was just no joined up approach from any of the substitutions, really, from any of the changes that he made, even like putting Saka at left back, fine. People have been calling for it. He doesn't have much option left now, and so on and so forth. But then there was no alteration down that channel, if you know what I mean. There was no way for then Saka and Foden to link up marginally better, or from Rice to be able to push it. There was no joined up at all from those changes that were made.
No, I mean, Declan Rice was England's best player, I thought, but he wasn't great. He was good, but he wasn't great. And I thought everybody else on the pitch ranged from okay to just awful. And they're very, very fortunate to be going through. The other game then, yesterday, the game that you attended. Spain 4, Georgia 1. Now, Spain absolutely deserved to win this game, but I didn't feel like Georgia deserved such a heavy defeat. They go 1-up. It's a Lenormand own goal. There's just genius from Kvaratskhelia. Lenormand puts it into his own net. It takes Spain until the 39th minute to get level. It's Rodri. It's always Rodri. For club and country, when they need a dig out, he's the one that steps up over and over and over again. Goes to half-time 1-1. The Georgians are definitely the happier team at that point. But 51 minutes, Fabian Ruiz, who we talked before the tournament, who will be the third midfielder with Pedri and Rodri. We suggested it would be him. It's been him. He's been outstanding. He was outstanding again yesterday. He steps up, puts them ahead. Then Nico Williams scores a tremendous goal to make it 3. And then Dani Olmo, who had come off the bench to replace Pedri on 52 minutes, makes it 4 on 83 minutes. I felt 4-1 was a little bit flattering for Spain based on the entirety of the match, but absolutely good value for their win. And I think thus far, given we've seen the knockouts and we've seen we've seen the group stage and now one match in the knockouts each, I think they'll go into the Germany game as favourites. I do think they've outperformed Germany. Now, the Germans can argue they had a harder match in the knockouts, and that may be true. But overall, I do think Spain have been the best team at the tournament ahead of Germany and Austria.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I think they've been the most complete team and the most consistently at that level team for sure. Like Germany have reached a very high level for one entire game and parts of others, but I think Spain have basically played the same way all the way through. They had, let's say, the same old issues against Italy in terms of missing chances and, creating openings and not taking them and so on, but they have improved that steadily. They did play, let's say, the most open team in this knockout stage, just because of the style of play that Georgia have, but they also haven't conceded a single goal, and they still haven't conceded a goal by a player scored against them. It was an own goal this time, so they do definitely have the balance in the side. They do have the technical ability to go such long spells with the ball that is their primary defensive resource, of course. I have to say, Nico Williams yesterday was just sensational. Like, obviously, a lot to talk about Lamine Yamal, and that's fine, and he's been really good as well. But Williams was just off the charts. He was so good yesterday, and that kind of consistent performance from a, let's say, not the very, very top star name on the team sheet is really important because, one, it's going to necessarily be that player who takes the defensive attention or the game plan from the opposition or anything like that. Two, you need other players other than the top stars, the Rodgers and Pedris and Yamal, if that's who you're looking to be able to create those kinds of opportunities. But secondly, just the difference that he gives Spain in terms of sometimes his run is a little bit more direct than, let's say, Yamal on the other side. It can be a little bit more, I think, acceleration over the first few yards than Yamal can be a little bit better sometimes. Just the burst that he has, which is probably just a consequence of he's a little bit older, his muscles are a bit more developed and so on. But like yesterday, he didn't misplace a pass as a forward. That's just ridiculous. Just non-stop. The game as a whole, you wouldn't want anything else than what happened, basically, to be there and talking about, not as a supporter of either one of those sides, obviously, but it was just incredible. Atmosphere was sensational. Georgia fans were probably the loudest I've ever experienced. Maybe Liverpool against Dortmund, but in that case, it would only be because the entire stadium was home support, obviously.
Yeah.
For it to be a split was just, it was incredible. The noise was just ridiculous. One of my colleagues was at the Turkey-Georgia match in the group stage. I can only imagine what that would have been. It must have been just constant bombs going off. It was ridiculously good. This game was absolutely brilliant. I think this was probably one of my top couple of games of the tournament so far.
That Turkey-Georgia game was the best atmosphere I've ever witnessed watching on TV. It was just incredible. Both sides, just amazing. And obviously you sent me a video you sent myself and Guy from the stadium last night, and you could feel it coming through the screen.
And that was just normal ball in play, possession.
Yeah, that's it. That wasn't after a goal. That wasn't after a big moment. That was just the ball in play, the game going on. I think the Georgians have added a ton to this tournament in terms of the on-field and off-field stuff. I think it's been fantastic for them. As I say, a little bit unfortunate to go out on such a heavy defeat, but they go home as heroes. I mean, to not only qualify for the tournament, which hadn't happened before, but then to get through to the knockout stage, to give Spain a tough game. I mean, look, 4-1 doesn't sound like a tough game, but that first half, Spain were really, really working hard to try and get themselves back into it.
Oh, yeah. Let's say the 5-10 minutes before Rodri's goal, they were getting a bit worried there. They were getting a bit concerned. You could see it. They were going down really easily, trying to get free kicks. They were sort of getting a bit narky with each other when the counters were leaving them exposed. They were sort of trying to force the issue a little bit more. And that's the forcing the issues a bit more. That's fine. Like you've got to try different things to obviously find a route to goal. I haven't got an issue with that, but you could see that it was definitely rattling them a bit. They hadn't been behind in the tournament before. They hadn't conceded a goal even. So it was a new moment for them, but they really, really did come through. And obviously Rodri was very, very central to that, not just with the goal, but with his manner on the pitch and his talking to the teammates and all the rest of it. I thought Spain were just sensational last night. He was very, very good. The game as a whole, brilliant.
Yeah, and the Georgians can just take great pride from this because they've shown the world they belong to a tournament like this. And when you look at, the age profile of the squad, Sagawa, who didn't play a ton, but he's 19, very, very highly rated. Mekvabishvili, Divanishvili, Kokulishvili, Kvaratskhelia, Chitashvili, Mikitadze, Marmadashvili, and Chekvitadze in the squad. Oh, and Kokulishvili, the midfielder, all 25 and under. And then there's a player who missed out in the tournament, Azaravi, the left back, plays for Shakhtar, who's very, very good. He's only 22. So they can look forward to the next couple of qualifying campaigns that they're going to get better. Like, this is not the end of this Georgian team by a long stretch. This is only the beginning for so many of them. This is a very young group with, in terms of the key players that you'd be looking to build around. And I think it's fair to say we'll be seeing a couple of these get pretty sizable moves over the next year or so. We have two games then today, Mr. Matchett. France versus Belgium is the early kickoff. Portugal, Slovenia is the late kickoff. Which game are you attending today?
I am at France, Belgium, which is, if I'm not completely mistaken, I'm getting the wrong train in Dusseldorf today.
So let's jump on to that one first. This is the 5 p.m. kickoff, 6 p.m. where you are. France have been, well, they've been every bit as underwhelming as England thus far. They just don't look like it's a cohesive team. I think Deschamps has made a couple of strange selection decisions, but they go up against the Belgian team that haven't exactly been dynamite themselves, and were maybe a little bit fortunate to get out of the group stage, given every team finished on 4 points. They were maybe a little bit fortunate to get themselves out of the group stage, because I did think at one point Ukraine were going to beat them in the final game. What are your thoughts on this one? How do you see this one playing out?
So, firstly, the talk, the chatter, the rumours, the media, speculation, whatever you want it to be, emanating from French media, is that Deschamps is going to revert system. So go back to the sort of more or less diamonds that he was using previously. So it's probably then Griezmann comes back in, both the wingers who played last game, Barcola and Dembele, who's been in the team recently, are going to be coming out. And then it'll be Griezmann behind Mbappe and Thuram. If they do that, I kind of feel it gives them a little bit better shape. I quite like France in this shape because the midfield they have are really, really suited to it. Like Rabiot playing from the side, but not wide like he did in that other game, which was just a nonsense. It lets you bring in one of the Real Madrid boys, probably like Tchouaméni, maybe as a ball carrier. So I quite like France in the shape. But the more important thing, I think, is that it shows that the coach is reacting to the situation, how it's unfolding. Like, he's not just going in with a tournament idea and saying, no, we're playing like this, and if it's crap and we go out, then that's fine. Like, we've seen it work and not work before. But this isn't like just a spur of the moment change. It's not like Italy suddenly going, all right, I tell you what, quarterfinals, we're going to play 3-5-2, which they've never played before, or go back to 3-4-3, which they last played like a couple of years ago or something like that. This is like a France system under the same coach with many of the same group of players that they have played in tournaments before. So I don't think it's the worst idea if that's what they choose to do. I don't think they've been good. I really don't. I don't think that they've been anywhere near the top two, Germany and Spain, who I think have been a cut above, let's say, over 3 and 4 matches so far. Belgium, I think you're being kind to them there. They had 1 good game out of 3, and they were shit for the others.
Yeah, and you'd wonder, would they even have been good in that Romania game if they don't score early? Like, if they don't score that second-minute goal by Tielemans, they might just have fallen into the same patterns they were in for the other 2 games. I do think it's a good idea for Deschamps to change the shape. I think getting Griezmann a bit closer to the midfield is huge, because we saw at the World Cup just how vital he was in terms of linking what was happening in midfield to the attack and being able to thread balls for Mbappe. And in that tournament, it was Kolo Muani. Like you say here, it's likely to be Marcus Thuram. For me, I'd like to see Kante in midfield with the 2 Real Madrid boys, with Tchouaméni and Camavinga. I think it would make them more dynamic. I don't think Rabiot's been good. At the back, I'm hopeful that Ibu comes back in, but I have doubts. It seems very much like Upamecano's just going to stay in the team forever, no matter how poorly he plays. I think this France team, on paper, is the most talented team at the tournament by a bit of a margin, but nothing is clicking for them, nothing is working for them, similar to the team who I think are the second most talented, which would be England. But, unlike Southgate, at least Deschamps, according to the rumours, is going to make a proactive change and be like, well, this hasn't worked. This hasn't worked so far. We have not performed anywhere close to the level that we know this group is capable of. We've scored 2 goals. One of them was an own goal, and the other one was a penalty. And now I'm going to make a change because I have to. Otherwise, I am out on my ear. And Zinedine Zidane is sat at home, ready to take over. And if he gets this job, my legacy will be forgotten quite quickly. The Belgians, though, Karl, like, what can they do? Because it just looks very tired at the moment. Now, I think Onana's had a pretty good tournament in midfield for them. I don't think the wide players have performed. I think Doku's been abject. I thought Trossard was poor. I think Lukaku's looked lively and could easily have 3 goals, but, you know, he's had them all disallowed, so he has no goals. I'm curious as to what the change Belgium can make and that makes them a bit more of a threat, or can they do anything with this group at this point?
I mean, they certainly can. What is obviously a key question. I mean, are you surprised that Bakayoko hasn't played a bit more, for example? Like, Luka Bakio's had a few outings. He's already had a suspension. I don't think he's particularly added anything to this team.
No.
Trossard, I don't think, has played well at all. I mean, like, I understand, obviously, that they want Kevin De Bruyne to be central and very much involved and as close to Lukaku as possible. So if you are limiting yourself to your starting base has to be De Bruyne behind Lukaku, you're a little limited in terms of how your setup can be. Like, you can be, let's say, an Inter Milan style 3-5-1-1, or you can be a 4-2-3-1. I'm not sure there's a whole lot more you can do unless you're going to go completely different and go to a diamond. and they don't really have the players to do a diamond midfield, and it would also leave out all of those wide players, which is, probably 7 steps too far at this point of a tournament, let's be honest. So I don't think formation-wise they really can change. I just don't. I think the only thing you can do is either drop De Bruyne a little bit further back into a 3-man midfield and have, let's say, Onana sitting at the base and try to overload centrally a little bit more, having Tielemans and De Bruyne a bit closer to each other. And then if you're going to have, like, let's say, Doku starting, because he just always is, apparently, hopefully he has something happen in this. You need someone who's going to be a bit more disciplined off the ball because it's a tough game, but also potentially a bit better with linking up with Lukaku. I mean, who that is in the Belgium squad?
Is it Openda?
Possibly. He's not really had too much of a look in. Like, in theory, if Trossard's playing well, that could be him. But
yeah,
as we said, he's not really.
No, he's not. He's not in form at all.
No, not at all. So, I mean, I personally would, at least for this game, attempt something along the lines of, like, Kevin De Bruyne playing from the right, free, but from the right. Have yourself an extra person in the middle who's going to bring you more energy to go up against that France midfield, more power to go up against that France midfield, because that's what the France midfield is. They control by domination. They control by being able to cover the ground and be very, very good on regains first, 1 or 2 passes out of the challenge, and then getting it to the front 3. That's how they do it. So I would try to match them up there, put De Bruyne maybe free from the right, like I say, and then it's not completely ideal, but Castagne's fine to overlap, not at pace, not tremendous in the final third, but he can provide the width at least. And maybe go from there. See if you can get yourself a bit of a base in the game. This isn't the match to basically bring out a stellar performance in terms of your build-up play and everything. This is a match to just do what you need to do to win.
Yeah, it feels like they'd almost be better off if they could kind of accept that France are going to have the ball and sit in and counter, and maybe that's where having, like, KDB as an outlet from the right, and then you could play a 2-man forward line with Lukaku and Openda up front, and then you'd have Openda's pace to stretch the game. And, maybe you have to go conservative, so maybe it's Tielemans off the left in a kind of boxy midfield, and you play Onana and either Mangala or Astor Franks, who hasn't seen much time in this tournament, or even Axel Witsel, just for a bit of experience, but he is well past his best.
Problem there is if you're going to attempt to play counter-attacking and then you've got Tielemans and De Bruyne as your nominally wide outlets, you're not going to counter very often, unless you've got 2 up front.
That's the thing. You're going to be reliant on the front 2 to go up against the defence. But if you invite France on enough and France commit enough men forward, then maybe you can isolate Openda against Upamecano or Openda on Saliba in space and use his pace and power and direct nature to cause France trouble, and then hope that Lukaku just gets on the end of something. But there's no real ideal outcome for Belgium here, or no real ideal match plan for Belgium here. But look, given how bad France have been, Belgium have a chance.
They have a chance. I do think that there's going to need to be alterations. I mean, I've not seen like loads of Pata Tiate. I was under the impression he was much more of a centre-back, but he seems to be obviously playing left for them when they're in a 4-man defence. So I don't think he's been ideal, let's be honest. I think it's been better for them at the back when Vertonghen's been in and able to direct people, not so much his own performance, but making sure that others are on a leash almost and in a line. Strictly speaking, I think the biggest issue here for Belgium is that individuals need to raise their game. Otherwise, I do think that even a below par France are going to have enough moments to beat them.
Yeah, I'd agree. So, prediction for France versus Belgium?
A slow burner, but I'm going to go with 2-1 to France.
I'll go 3-1 France, but I think it'll be the same type of game as you. I just think maybe late on, Belgium just get caught committing too many forwards, trying to find an equaliser, and France catch them on the counter. The other game today then is in Frankfurt. It is Portugal versus Slovenia. Again, I don't know that either of these teams were... Well, look, Slovenia to be fair, I think have outperformed all expectation. Portugal, though, I mean, they've been a bit of a mixed bag. They were very disappointing in the first game, needed 2 very spawny goals to find their way out of the group. Then they looked good in their second game. And then in their final game, they lost to Georgia because they rotated everybody, which is fine because they'd already qualified. But Slovenia are really well organised. They're really hardworking. They don't make many mistakes, and the mistakes they do make, they've got one of the best goalkeepers in the world to clean up for them. They do carry some threat going forward in the shape of Sesko, who, if he gets an opportunity, is capable of putting it away. Portugal are heavy favourites, and rightly so, but I don't think this is as easy as people are making it out to be. I kind of feel like Slovenia, like Slovakia, have been a little bit overlooked.
Yeah, I'd agree. I mean, look at how Slovenia got through to this stage. Like, it's very obvious. It's very evident. They played 3 games, they didn't lose any of them, and they conceded 2 goals. Like, this is a super organised side. Everybody knows their roles. It's not a complicated setup. It's the setup that if you live in the UK, in the Highland, you probably see your local under-11s team do, and then so does everybody else from that age group onwards. It's 4-4-2. It's 2 players up front, and one of them has to work really hard, and one of them's really big. It's a setup which works for them, and obviously in terms of their organisational ball play, it's more complicated than your under-11s Sunday League side might be, but basically the setup is that. It's really, really hard work in central midfielders who are technically proficient. It's wide players who stay wide when they're on the ball, stretch play, and try to lead the counterattacks. It's a back four who plays as a back four, like really, really good in a line, quite deep. All of them capable of aerial wins as much as on the ground stuff. Bijol's been in really good form through the tournament. And then if you can't feed Sesko, the one who's basically almost been a creator and an attempted goal scorer for them, then it goes to Spora, who I think is poor, but does a lot of the running, who does a lot of the groundwork, let's say, to sort of put defenders under pressure, who does a lot of the attempted hold-up play, even though his technical level's not really there. You know, Slovenia got through the group of death, not for teams involved, but for anybody who had to watch because they were so dreadfully dull in Group C. But they got through that way. They didn't lose a game. They got 3 points. They were the last of the third place teams to get through because they didn't concede goals. Goal difference got them through. That simple.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they started off with the 1-1 draw against Denmark, coming from behind to get that draw. Then they played the Serbs, and they were unfortunate not to beat the Serbs. Late goal from Lukajovic, 95th minute, robbed them of a win. And then obviously they played out the 0-0 draw against England. And England have had 4 disappointing performances, but that was probably the worst of the 4 in terms of how limited they were in the game, because Slovenia were really well organised and just didn't give them any time or space. And I think you're right. I think Jakub Bijol has been outstanding. Genuinely a big fan of him. I don't think he's going to be at Udinese for much longer. But everybody knows their roles. The only one that has a little bit of freedom to play outside of the system is Benjamin Sesko. And I have to say, it warmed my heart to see Josip Ilicic coming off the bench in the last game.
That was nice.
And I'm hoping he gets a little run out here one way or another, because what a player he's been, what he's been through with his mental health. I mean, everybody should be pulling for him. There's something about this Portuguese team, Karl. I mean, they played the Czechs, they go 1 down. It's an absolute blessing, the own goal that gets them back into it, and then the late Conceição goal off the deflected cross. Then they played Turkey. Obviously, Bernardo scores the first goal. It's really well worked. But if Cristiano doesn't fall over, he probably tries to get a shot away and skies it into the crowd. The second goal is the own goal, which is a complete gift. And the third goal is the worst defensive line you'll ever see, until Kyle Walker's attempts at playing a defensive line yesterday. And then obviously the Georgian game didn't matter, but they did lose 2-0 to Georgia. And there were some very questionable performances in that game from some of the Portuguese players who, might not be starters, but could be players they're relying on off the bench. So there's not a whole lot to really get too excited about in terms of the Portuguese. I would back them to win today, and I will pick them to win today, but I wouldn't be overly surprised if Slovenia forced extra time, potentially even penalties. It wouldn't be the shock of the tournament if they beat them, for my money.
No, agreed. I think that Slovenia are able to get close to this Portugal squad because of their off the ball work. Portugal technically obviously are miles above, and they have certainly a lot more options to change system, to change setups, change their approach play, to change who they aim for in the box in different ways. That's all very, very clear. But they're not super cohesive at the minute, and I don't think that they move the ball anywhere near quick enough to really trouble Slovenia from the outset. A couple of things obviously will go in Portugal's favour in terms of the left back whose name has completely escaped my head at the minute is suspended, Eric Janza. He's one of the players who has scored for Slovenia, one of their 2 goals in this tournament, and obviously is a big part of their defence, good experience. As part of that setup, Portugal have to play wide and have to play quick. That's the only way to break down this Slovenia side. That's what you have to do. And whether that's looking to get Silva into wider positions or getting overloads down that flank or whatever, that's where they need to be much, much better at than they have been so far. And I do think that they have, enough technical quality to just create moments again if it's a performance like that which gets the win. I don't think that this is going to be a spectacular game, and I think Bruno Fernandes' positioning is going to be maybe the most important thing for Portugal, because it's such a rigid sort of 2 in defence, 2 in midfield for Slovenia. He's got to be the one who finds the pockets. He's got to be the one who is able to receive on the half turn and immediately make the pass and know where it's going. And for him to be able to do that, other people need to be making those runs. It can't be a case of Ronaldo standing in the box and Leao and somebody else on the edges of the box and waiting to see what happens to them make their runs. That won't work for Portugal in this game.
No, it won't. Slovenia, both their goals thus far have come from fullbacks.
Yeah.
Karnišnik scored in the second game, Janza in the first game. I think from a defensive point of view for this game, if you're going to lose one of your fullbacks, Janza's probably the one you're more comfortable losing, because I think it'll likely be Bernardo playing from the right, and he's not really going to spend much time on the right. He's going to drift in field. So it's less of a task then for that left back to protect that channel. Whereas on the other side, it is Rafael Leao who'll be looking to run in behind. But one of the things that we've seen from the Slovenians is that those fullbacks, they're not shy about getting forward.
Yeah.
They will look to get forward and be aggressive about it. And Rafael Leao's big knock is that he is incredibly poor off the ball. He wants no part of chasing a fullback back towards his own goal. So that might be something that the Slovenians can look to exploit. However, they do need to be wary of turning the ball over with that fullback high up the pitch and Leao standing in 20 yards of space, because that's where he can hurt them. I'm going to pick Portugal to win. I'm going to say 2-1 after extra time.
So that's the prediction that I think Guy gave yesterday for England, which was obviously absolutely spot on, extra time as well. So you are up against it when it comes to being absolutely superb with your picks today. Return to the podcast. I'm going to go a 90 minutes win, and I'm going to go just a 1-0 in Portugal.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to be, like, if it is, I think it's going to be a 1-goal win either way. I'd be surprised if Portugal, well, maybe they could beat them 2-0, but I'd be surprised even. And if they do, I think it'll be a late second on the counter. Is this the game where Cristiano breaks his goal scoring duck for this tournament?
No,
I wouldn't say so either. They'd just be so much better off if he was coming off the bench. Right, we will leave it there. You have to get yourself to Dusseldorf, so enjoy your trip, enjoy the game, and we will speak tomorrow. Take care of yourself. Bye-bye.
Sports Social Podcast Network.